Hey legends, welcome back to The Reasons Why. Today we're cracking open the fizziest debate of all time. Why Pepsi is better than Coca Cola. Forget the classic hype. We've got 21 bold reasons why the blue can completely destroy the red one. From taste tests to pop culture chaos, this is the cola war you've been waiting for. So grab a Pepsi, sit back, and let's roast Coke into flat soda water. Pepsi actually tastes sweeter and smoother. When you crack open a can of Pepsi, the first thing that hits you is the sweetness. Not in a cloying, heavy way, but in a smooth, refreshing punch that Coke just can't replicate. Coke has this sharper, almost medicinal edge that makes you feel like you're drinking liquid history homework, while Pepsi is more like liquid fun. In blind taste tests, and yes, this has been studied to death, Pepsi consistently comes out on top because our brains are wired to prefer sweeter flavors. It's science, not just bias. The smoother profile makes it easier to gulp down on a hot day, pair with snacks, or chug during a movie marathon without feeling like you're drinking syrup. Coke fans love to act like their drink is classic, but when you strip away the nostalgia and brand loyalty, Pepsi's taste just straight up wins. It's not trying to remind you of an old diner in the 1950s. It's here to fuel your Friday night. Pepsi doesn't just taste different, it tastes like the future. Pepsi dominates blind taste tests. The Pepsi Challenge wasn't just a marketing stunt, it was a cultural event. Back in the 1970s and 80s, Pepsi literally set up booths across malls and public spaces, poured Coke and Pepsi into unmarked cups, and asked people to pick which one they liked better. Over and over again, Pepsi won. Not just by a little, but by a landslide. Why? Because when the labels were hidden, Coke's so-called classic taste couldn't hide behind branding. People's taste buds voted honestly, and Pepsi's sweeter, smoother edge crushed it. This was so embarrassing for Coca-Cola that they panicked and created New Coke in 1985, a desperate attempt to copy Pepsi's formula. Spoiler, it was a disaster, and Coke had to retreat back to their original recipe. That single moment in soda history proved something once and for all. Without nostalgia goggles, Pepsi just tastes better. Every Coke loyalist knows deep down that if we strip the red label away, they'd reach for the blue can every time. Pepsi didn't just win blind taste tests, it permanently scarred Coke's ego. Coke is flat, Pepsi is fun. Here's the cold, fizzy truth. Coke has that dull, flat edge that makes it feel like the drink is scolding you. It's sharp, dry, and a little bitter, like the soda equivalent of a boring lecture. Pepsi, on the other hand, comes in with sparkle and energy. It's lighter, bubblier, and gives you that let's party vibe with every sip. Coke is the drink you sip politely at your grandma's Sunday lunch. Pepsi is the drink you shotgun before jumping into a gaming marathon or blasting music with your friends. That difference matters. Fun isn't just about taste, it's about the experience. The fizz in Pepsi feels alive, like it's dancing on your tongue, while Coke feels like it's just there. Even the branding reflects it. Coke leans into heritage and tradition, while Pepsi leans into youth, fun, and pop culture chaos. People don't crack open a Pepsi to reminisce about the 1940s. They crack one open to fuel the now. So yeah, Coke may be classic, but Pepsi is electric, and between flat and fun wins every time. Pepsi nails the perfect fizz. You know that moment when you pop open a can and hear the crisp psht? That's the sound of victory, and Pepsi does it better than anyone. Coke's carbonation hits hard at first, but then fizzles out way too quickly like a firework that burns bright for half a second before disappearing. Pepsi, though, it's the marathon runner of fizz. The bubbles are smoother, longer lasting, and way more satisfying. You don't just get a harsh blast of carbonation, you get a consistent sparkle that keeps every sip alive. That's why Pepsi feels refreshing all the way through, instead of turning into flat syrup halfway down the can. And let's be honest, nobody wants to babysit their soda. You want fizz that goes the distance. Pepsi's carbonation is also friendlier on the throat. It doesn't punch you in the esophagus like Coke does. It's a fizzy experience you can actually enjoy, not endure. At the end of the day, Coke is a loud sneeze, but Pepsi is a perfect playlist. Steady, smooth, and always keeping the vibes right. Pepsi mixes better with alcohol. Here's a little bar secret. When it comes to mixing with rum, whiskey, or vodka, Pepsi wins hands down. Coke might act like it's the classic partner for rum, but let's be real. Its harsher, spikier taste can bulldoze the actual flavor of the alcohol. Pepsi, on the other hand, has a smoother sweetness and lighter fizz that blends instead of fighting. That means your rum and Pepsi feels like a balanced cocktail, not a sugar and acid brawl. Bartenders know it too. Pepsi has a more versatile profile, making it easier to pair with a wider range of spirits. Plus, Pepsi doesn't overpower the drinker's palate, so you can still taste the character of the booze while getting that refreshing cola hit. Even casual drinkers can feel the difference. A Jack and Pepsi goes down smoother than a Jack and Coke every single time. Pepsi doesn't just mix well, it enhances the vibe. Coke feels stiff and old school, like a drink your uncle orders because he doesn't know better. Pepsi feels like the choice of someone who actually wants to enjoy the night. Bottom line, when it's party time, the blue can is the real wingman. Hold up. Your turn to join the cola war. Drop your funniest, wildest, or most savage reason why Pepsi destroys Coke in the comments. The best clapbacks and roasts are getting immortalized in our next Users Edition video. Don't just watch, fight for your soda pride! Coke feels old, Pepsi feels fresh. Coca Cola is basically the dusty encyclopedia sitting on your grandparents' shelf. Respected, sure, but boring. Its entire brand screams heritage and tradition, which is corporate speak for stuck in the past. Pepsi, meanwhile, has always leaned into freshness. From its taste to its branding, Pepsi feels current, youthful, and alive. Coke wants you to remember the 1950s. Pepsi wants you to vibe with right now. That's why Pepsi keeps jumping into music, gaming, and sports culture instead of recycling the same old polar bears every holiday season. Even the flavor reflects it. Coke hits heavy and syrupy, while Pepsi is brighter and more refreshing, making it the go-to when you actually want to feel awake and energized. Coke may have that museum piece appeal, but Pepsi is the drink that belongs in your hand today. It's no accident Pepsi is the brand that artists and creators align with. It feels modern, it feels bold, and it refuses to smell like mothballs. Coke can keep its classic status. Pepsi owns the freshness factor. Pepsi branding is way more youthful. Look at the logos side by side. Coke's old-school red script hasn't changed much since your great-grandparents were alive. It's elegant, sure, but also screams boring tradition. Pepsi, on the other hand, has reinvented itself again and again, always chasing that youthful, rebellious vibe. The bold blue, the playful red and white swirl, it feels modern, sporty, and energetic. Pepsi ads don't talk down to you with nostalgia. They hype you up with celebrities, music, sports, and culture. That's why Pepsi has been able to stay cool with younger audiences. It knows how to adapt. Coke relies on heritage as if we're all sentimental historians who want our soda with a side of sepia-toned memories. Pepsi says, nah, here's a can that feels alive right now. Even the way people hold a Pepsi can feels different. It's casual, fun, and ready to go. Coke feels like something you'd display in a retro diner. Pepsi feels like something you'd bring to a party. Branding isn't just about looks, it's about energy. And Pepsi's energy is forever young. Michael Jackson picked Pepsi, not Coke. When the king of pop had to choose a soda, he didn't go with Coke. He went with Pepsi. And that wasn't just a random sponsorship, it was a cultural earthquake. Michael Jackson was the most famous entertainer on the planet, and when he starred in Pepsi's commercials in the 1980s, it instantly made Pepsi the cool drink of the era. Suddenly, Pepsi wasn't just a soda, it was part of the music, the style, and the rebellion of an entire generation. Coke might have had Santa Claus, but Pepsi had the moonwalk. That's not even a contest. And MJ wasn't the only one. Pepsi's history is stacked with pop culture icons who defined decades, from Britney Spears to Beyoncé. Coke keeps recycling safe, wholesome mascots and jingles, while Pepsi actually brings in cultural firepower. Let's be honest, if Pepsi was good enough for the man who basically reinvented music videos, it's good enough for anyone. Coke can stay in the history books. Pepsi will stay in the spotlight. After all, when the biggest star on earth says Pepsi is it, who are we to argue? Pepsi embraces pop culture harder. Pepsi doesn't just sell soda, it sells culture. From Super Bowl halftime shows to iconic celebrity collabs, Pepsi has always been at the center of the music, fashion, and sports scenes. They don't just sponsor events, they create moments. Think about it. Pepsi brought us Britney Spears in her prime, Beyoncé in her world-dominating era, and even Cardi B yelling "Oh, Kerr" in a Pepsi ad. Meanwhile, Coke is still patting itself on the back for teaching the world to sing in the 1970s. Cute but ancient, Pepsi understands that culture moves fast and it moves with it. You'll see Pepsi cans in music videos, gaming tournaments, and even on TikTok challenges because Pepsi doesn't just want to be your drink, it wants to be part of your lifestyle. Coke is the heritage brand, which is just corporate code for we peaked decades ago. Pepsi, on the other hand, keeps jumping into whatever the new generation is doing. That's why Pepsi feels alive in 2025, while Coke feels like your... Coke ads are boring compared to Pepsi's chaos. Coke commercials are safe, predictable, and painfully wholesome. Polar bears sharing a Coke? Santa Claus drinking one under the tree? Cute, sure, but also the advertising equivalent of elevator music. Pepsi, on the other hand, thrives on chaos. Pepsi ads are loud, colorful, and straight-up events. When Pepsi drops a Super Bowl ad, it feels like a mini music video with A-list celebrities, flashing lights, and memes waiting to be born. Pepsi doesn't sell you a soda, it sells you a spectacle. Coke is trying to warm your heart, Pepsi is trying to blow your mind. And honestly, in today's world, which one do you actually remember? Nobody is quoting a Coke commercial in 2025, but people are still talking about Britney's Pepsi spot, Beyoncé's Pepsi dance battle, and the halftime show's Pepsi sponsors every year. Ads aren't just about selling a product, they're about being unforgettable. Coke wants you to feel good. Pepsi wants you to scream at the screen. And in the battle for attention, chaos beats cute every time. Pepsi has better limited editions. Coke might have its cherry and vanilla spins, but Pepsi takes limited editions to a whole new level. We're talking flavors like Crystal Pepsi, a clear cola that blew people's minds in the 90s, Pepsi Blue, Pepsi Fire, and even collabs with Doritos and Peeps. Love them or hate them, these flavors become cultural moments. People hunt them down, post reviews, and flex them on social media like collectibles. Coke's limited editions, meanwhile, are safe and predictable, barely scratching beyond orange or coffee. Yawn. Pepsi isn't afraid to experiment, even if it's weird, because that's what keeps the hype alive. Plus, Pepsi is always first to the trend. While Coke is trying to sell you nostalgia, Pepsi is out here reinventing itself for every new generation. Limited editions aren't just about taste, they're about energy, hype, and conversation. And Pepsi has mastered that game. Coke feels like a product, Pepsi feels like an event, and honestly, which one are you more likely to post about on TikTok? Pepsi Max greater than Coke Zero. Coke Zero tries so hard to convince you it's just like the real thing, but let's be honest, it tastes like watered-down homework. Pepsi Max, on the other hand, is bold, sweet, and actually feels like a treat instead of a punishment. If you're cutting sugar, you want something that still feels like soda, not a sad imitation. Pepsi Max nails it with its intense flavor that keeps the sweetness and fizz alive without the guilt. It doesn't pretend to be Coke, it stands on its own, like a boss-level upgrade. Even die-hard sugar lovers admit Pepsi Max tastes shockingly close to regular Pepsi, while Coke Zero just reminds you of what you're missing. And let's not forget caffeine, Pepsi Max comes with more of it, which means it actually delivers that kick you need to survive a late-night gaming session or a 3 p.m. slump at work. Coke Zero might as well be sparkling tap water in a black can. Pepsi Max isn't just better. It's proof that Pepsi can win in both taste and performance, leaving Coke Zero sitting in the corner with its identity crisis. Pepsi's blue can is iconic. Brand wars aren't just about taste, they're about visuals. And Pepsi's blue can is a straight-up icon. Think about it. In a sea of red, the bold blue instantly stands out. Coke's red might be classic, but it also blends into every other fast food logo and supermarket aisle. Pepsi's blue feels fresh, unique, and rebellious. It's not trying to look like ketchup packaging, it's making a statement. That deep metallic blue practically glows when you pull it out of a fridge, and it has become a cultural symbol in itself, linked to music, sports, and youth culture. Coke's red logo says tradition and safe choice. Pepsi's blue says, I'm here to have fun and I don't care who knows it. Even in branding psychology, blue represents trust, energy, and coolness, while red is more about aggression and caution. So yeah, Pepsi didn't just choose blue randomly. It's a vibe and people feel it. One glance at that can, and you already know it's not just another cola. It's Pepsi, baby. Bold, confident, and iconic. Pepsi is the ultimate gaming drink. Gamers know the truth. Pepsi hits different when you're in the middle of a late-night grind. The sweetness keeps your energy up. The fizz is smoother and easier to chug between matches, and the caffeine boost is perfectly tuned to keep you alert without making you crash like an energy drink. Pepsi has also leaned hard into gaming culture, sponsoring esports tournaments, partnering with streamers, and dropping special edition cans that feel like collectibles. Coke, meanwhile, just sits in the corner like it doesn't even know what Twitch is. Pepsi understands the vibe. Gaming is about fun, energy, and community, and Pepsi matches that rhythm perfectly. You don't want a heavy, syrupy Coke dragging you down while you're clutching in Valorant or dropping into Warzone. You want something sharp, sweet, and energizing. Exactly what Pepsi delivers. Plus, let's be real. When was the last time you saw Coke memes in the gaming community? Pepsi is the drink of choice when you're chasing wins, staying up all night, and yelling into your headset. Coke is for halftime commercials. Pepsi is for player 2. Coke is for grandparents. Pepsi is for rebels. Coke feels like the drink you find at your grandma's house next to dusty hard candy and a bowl of stale peanuts. It's safe, predictable, and stuck in the past. Pepsi is the soda of rebellion. It's the one you crack open when you're blasting music too loud, staying up past midnight, or breaking the one more episode rule. Coke markets itself as classic, which is just code for old and unwilling to change. Pepsi embraces being the underdog and flips that into a badge of honor. It's the drink of the young, the loud, the ones who actually want to stir things up. Even pop culture backs it. From Michael Jackson moonwalking in Pepsi ads to modern stars turning Pepsi cans into props, the blue can has always aligned with rule breakers. Coke wants you to follow tradition. Pepsi wants you to break it. And let's be real. In today's world, who wants to sip on something that screams boring respectability? Rebels make culture, not grandparents. And Pepsi will always be the drink that fuels the fire. Pepsi partners with cooler celebrities. When it comes to celebrity endorsements, Coke can't compete with Pepsi's all-star lineup. We're talking Michael Jackson, Britney Spears, Beyoncé, Cardi B, Nicki Minaj, Kendall Jenner. Yep, even her controversial ad became a cultural meme. And The Weeknd headlining the Super Bowl halftime show with a Pepsi mic in hand. Pepsi doesn't just hire celebrities, it creates iconic moments with them. Coke's roster, mostly forgettable jingles and safe and family-friendly faces that nobody remembers 5 minutes later. Pepsi knows that if you want to win hearts, you go where the culture is hottest. Pop stars, athletes, influencers. Pepsi surrounds itself with people who define eras. Coke plays it safe with tradition. Pepsi takes risks with the biggest names of the moment. And guess what? People remember. The Super Bowl halftime show alone has become synonymous with Pepsi, while Coke is nowhere to be found. Celebrity culture drives hype, and Pepsi owns that hype cycle like a boss. Let's face it, when Beyoncé is singing with a Pepsi can in her hand, Coke looks like it's still stuck booking barbershop quartets. Pepsi is less syrupy. Here's the thing about Coke. After a few sips, it starts to feel like you're drinking liquid molasses. Heavy, sticky, and cloying, like it's coating your throat in caramel glue. Pepsi, on the other hand, keeps it light and refreshing. Its sweetness is sharp and clean, not weighed down by syrup overload. That's why Pepsi goes down easier when you're actually thirsty. You can drink a whole can without feeling like you need to wash it down with another drink. Coke fans love to talk about its signature flavor, but half the time that signature just feels like drinking pancake syrup with bubbles. Pepsi balances sweetness with smoothness, giving you a drink that's lively instead of sluggish. That difference makes Pepsi perfect for long sessions, whether it's gaming, watching movies, or just hanging out, because you don't feel bloated and bogged down. Coke might win nostalgia points, but Pepsi wins in real-life drinkability. Less syrupy, more sippable. And in the cola game, that's what really matters. Pepsi actually quenches thirst. Let's be honest, Coke doesn't actually quench your thirst. It makes you feel thirstier. That heavy, syrupy aftertaste lingers in your mouth and almost demands you grab some water after. Pepsi, though? Pepsi feels refreshing. Its lighter sweetness and smoother fizz actually cool you down instead of weighing you down. On a hot summer day, a can of Pepsi is like hitting a reset button for your body. That's why Pepsi works better with food, too. It clears your palate between bites instead of sticking to it like Coke's caramel sludge. And scientifically, the sweeter profile of Pepsi hits your brain's ah button faster, giving you that immediate sense of relief Coke just can't deliver. Coke is the drink of nostalgia. Pepsi is the drink of refreshment. One leaves you sticky and parched, the other leaves you satisfied and ready for round two. When the choice is between an actual thirst quencher and a sugary trickster, the answer's obvious. Pepsi doesn't just taste good, it does the job Coke pretends to do. Coke just feels heavier and outdated. Every sip of Coke feels like it's dragging you down. The syrupy weight, the old-fashioned branding, the insistence on being classic, it all screams outdated. Coke isn't just heavy in taste, it's heavy in vibe. It's the soda equivalent of lugging around a typewriter in the age of smartphones. Pepsi, by contrast, feels light, modern, and forward-facing. Its branding evolves, its flavors experiment, and its taste actually matches what people want today, something crisp and easy to drink. Coke fans act like being classic is a strength, but let's be real. It's just code for being stuck in the past. Pepsi embraces being the challenger brand, the one that reinvents itself instead of sitting on dusty nostalgia. That's why Pepsi feels fresh in 2025, while Coke feels like a relic. Drinking Coke is like watching reruns of black and white TV shows. Sure, it's tradition, but who actually wants that anymore? Pepsi doesn't weigh you down with history. It lifts you up with energy. Outdated versus updated, and Pepsi stays winning. Pepsi fans are louder and prouder. Here's the thing. Coke drinkers act smug in silence, clinging to the classic label like it's a security blanket. Pepsi fans, we're loud, proud, and unbothered. We know we're backing the underdog, and that makes every sip feel like a statement. Pepsi drinkers don't just crack open a can, they rep it like a badge of honor. Online debates? Pepsi fans always bring the fire. Memes, roasts, blind taste test receipts, we show up swinging. Coke's fanbase feels like it's on autopilot, like they inherited their loyalty from their grandparents and never questioned it. Pepsi's fanbase chooses Pepsi. That passion is why Pepsi keeps thriving despite Coke's global dominance, because Pepsi fans are vocal, defiant, and way more fun. It's like rooting for the scrappy team that keeps upsetting the champion. And honestly, who doesn't love an underdog story? Pepsi drinkers don't hide behind tradition. We shout, we debate, we post, we meme. Pepsi isn't just a soda, it's a personality. And our pride is louder than Coke's silence will ever be. Pepsi is the real underdog champion. Pepsi has always been the challenger, the scrappy fighter in the shadow of Coke's classic empire. And you know what? That's exactly why people love it. Being the underdog means Pepsi never gets lazy. It keeps pushing, experimenting, reinventing, and fighting for attention. Coke sits on its throne of nostalgia, acting like it doesn't need to prove anything, while Pepsi is out here hustling with bold flavors, iconic collabs, and unforgettable moments. Underdogs inspire loyalty because they earn it, not because it's inherited. Choosing Pepsi isn't just picking a drink, it's joining a movement that thrives on rebellion and freshness. People root for the fighter, not the king who's been sitting still for 100 years. And every time Pepsi comes swinging, it proves it deserves the crown. Coke might have the bigger empire, but Pepsi has the bigger heart and the louder army. In the world of colas, the blue can is the true underdog champion. And honestly, everyone loves when the underdog wins. Thanks for watching, legends! If you're Team Pepsi, make some noise in the comments, and if you're still clinging to Coke, well, good luck defending that. Don't forget to drop your best arguments for Users Edition, and of course, hit that subscribe button so you never miss the chaos. This is The Reasons Why. Epic debates, legendary comments.